The sharp scent of industrial bleach burned my nostrils as I scrubbed the marble bathroom counter for the third time. My lower back ached with a persistent throb that had become my constant companion over the past few weeks, and I had to pause every few minutes to catch my breath. 4 months pregnant and working double shifts at the Aurelia Grand Hotel wasn't exactly ideal, but desperation had a way of making the impossible seem routine. I caught my reflection in the spotless mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. Dark circles shadowed my eyes. My cheeks had hollowed despite the small bump I desperately tried to conceal beneath my oversized uniform, and my blonde hair hung limp from the tight bun required by hotel standards. 26 years old, and I looked a decade older, worn down by secrets and shame. "Clara, you almost done in there?" Jenny's voice called from the bedroom of Suite 2847. "We've got 3 more rooms on this floor, and Marco's breathing down my neck about the timeline." "Almost finished," I called back, forcing brightness into my voice that I didn't feel. My hand instinctively moved to my stomach, a protective gesture that had become habit. "Just need to restock the toiletries." As I bent to retrieve the basket of luxury amenities from my cart, a wave of nausea rolled through me. I gripped the counter, breathing slowly through my nose until the feeling passed. Morning sickness was supposed to end after the first trimester, but apparently my baby hadn't read that particular manual. My baby. The thought still felt surreal, terrifying, and somehow comforting all at once. I'd been so careful. No one at the Aurelia knew about my condition. I wore loose uniforms, avoided conversations about my personal life, and made sure to time my bathroom breaks when the morning sickness hit hardest. The hotel couldn't afford to keep a pregnant woman on the cleaning staff, not with the physical demands of the job, and I couldn't afford to lose this position. Not when I had medical bills piling up and a baby coming in 5 months. The father, Derek, had made his position abundantly clear when I'd tried to tell him 3 months ago. He'd looked at me with such cold dismissal that it still made my chest tight to remember. "That's your problem, not mine," he'd said, already backing toward his car. "We were just having fun, Clara. You knew that." By the time I'd gathered the courage to mention the pregnancy again, his number was disconnected and his apartment emptied. He'd vanished like smoke, leaving me alone with the growing life inside me. I finished restocking the bathroom and wheeled my cart into the hallway, where Jenny was already stripping the bed in the next suite. She was 43, a single mother of 2 teenagers, and the closest thing I had to a friend at the Aurelia. She'd taken me under her wing when I'd started 6 months ago, teaching me the unspoken rules of luxury hotel housekeeping, how to make hospital corners that could bounce a quarter, which guests tipped generously, and most importantly, how to remain invisible. "You look pale," Jenny observed, eyeing me with concern as I joined her. "You feeling okay?" "Just tired," I lied, grabbing the opposite corner of the fitted sheet. "Didn't sleep well last night." She nodded, accepting the explanation, but I caught the worry in her eyes. Jenny was too perceptive for comfort sometimes. "Well, after we finish this floor, take your lunch break. You've been pushing yourself too hard lately." If only she knew. I'd picked up every extra shift available over the past month, squirreling away money for the baby while I still could. The Aurelia paid better than most hotels in Chicago, catering to an elite clientele that demanded perfection and paid premium rates for it. Our housekeeping staff serviced politicians, celebrities, and business tycoons who thought nothing of spending $5,000 a night on a suite. And then there were the other guests, the ones who arrived with an entourage of stern-faced men who requested specific floors with restricted elevator access, who paid in cash and never stayed under their real names. The Aurelia had a reputation for discretion, which attracted a certain type of clientele that operated in shadows. "Did you hear about the VIP arriving tonight?" Jenny asked as we moved to change the pillowcases. "Entire penthouse floor booked. Marco's been in a state all morning." My stomach tightened with anxiety. VIP bookings meant extra scrutiny, longer hours, and impossible standards. "Do we know who it is?" Some businessman from what I heard, but the kind that travels with security. Jenny lowered her voice. Teresa from the front desk said he's paying cash for the whole week. $30,000. I whistled low. That kind of money suggested either extreme wealth or extreme need for privacy. Probably both. Guess we better make sure the penthouse is spotless then. Marco already has you scheduled for it, Jenny said apologetically. I tried to take it, but he insisted on his best cleaner. Pride warred with dread in my chest. Being Marco's best cleaner meant I was reliable, thorough, and most importantly, discreet. It also meant I got assigned the most demanding suites and the most difficult guests. But I needed this job too much to complain. We finished the floor 40 minutes later, and I headed to the staff break room for my lunch. The small basement room smelled of reheated food and burnt coffee. I retrieved my brown bag from my locker and sank onto one of the plastic chairs, grateful to be off my swollen feet. Inside the bag was a peanut butter sandwich, an apple, and a small bag of crackers. The same lunch I'd packed for the past 3 weeks because it was cheap, and my nausea could tolerate it. I ate mechanically, scrolling through my phone to avoid thinking about the mountain of problems waiting for me after my shift. My bank account balance made my chest constrict. $847. I'd managed to save nearly $2,000 over the past months, but the first prenatal appointment had cost $600 even, with the basic insurance the Aurelia provided. The next appointment was in 2 weeks, and I'd need to find another $300 somewhere. A text notification popped up from an unknown number. Clara, it's Derek. We need to talk. Call me. My hands started shaking. 4 months of silence, and now he wanted to talk. I stared at the message, anger and hope warring inside me. What could he possibly have to say now? That he'd made a mistake? That he wanted to be part of the baby's life? Or was this about money? About ensuring I wouldn't come after him for child support? I deleted the message without responding. Whatever Derek wanted, I didn't have the emotional bandwidth to deal with it right now. I'd made peace with raising this baby alone. Opening that door again would only lead to more heartbreak. Clara Santiago to the lobby, please. Clara Santiago to the lobby. Marco's voice crackled through the ancient intercom system. I tossed my half-eaten sandwich back in the bag and hurried upstairs, my mind racing through potential reasons for the summons. Had someone complained about my work? Had Marco noticed my condition? Was I being fired? The lobby of the Aurelia Grand was a masterpiece of old-world elegance, soaring ceilings with crystal chandeliers, polished marble floors that reflected the soft golden lighting, and furniture that probably cost more than I made in a year. Guests in designer clothes sipped cocktails at the bar, while others checked in at the gleaming reception desk. Marco stood near the concierge station, his expression unreadable. At 48, he was lean and precise, with graying hair and the perpetually stressed look of someone responsible for maintaining impossible standards. When he spotted me, he gestured sharply for me to follow him to his office. My heart hammered against my ribs as I followed him through the staff corridors to the small office he maintained behind the scenes. He closed the door and turned to face me, his dark eyes assessing. Clara, I need you on the penthouse floor tonight, he said without preamble. Our VIP guest is arriving in 3 hours, and I want everything perfect. I'm talking white glove perfection. Relief flooded through me. Not fired. Just another demanding assignment. Of course, Marco. I'll make sure everything is spotless. This isn't a regular guest, he continued, his voice dropping. This is Cameron Blackwood. Do you know that name? The name meant nothing to me, and I shook my head. Marco's expression darkened. Cameron Blackwood controls half of Chicago's business interests, both legitimate and otherwise. He's powerful, dangerous, and extremely particular. When he stays at a hotel, staff members have been fired for putting the wrong type of water in his room. Dangerous. The word sent ice through my veins. I understand. I'll be careful. More than careful, Clara. You'll be invisible, You'll service his suite when he's not there. You'll make no noise, leave no trace, and ask no questions. Is that clear? I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. Good. The penthouse is already prepared, but I want you to do a final inspection and setup. Pay special attention to the bathroom. Mr. Blackwood has very specific preferences for his toiletries and towel arrangements. He handed me a detailed instruction sheet. Everything is outlined here. As I took the paper, Marco's gaze dropped briefly to my midsection, and I saw the calculation in his eyes. He suspected something, I realized with cold dread. Maybe not the pregnancy specifically, but he knew something was different about me lately. Clara, he said quietly, are you sure you're up for this? If there's anything I should know? I'm fine, I interrupted quickly. Just tired from the extra shifts. I promise, Marco. You can count on me. He studied me for a long moment before nodding. All right, but Clara, if anything happens with this guest, if there are any problems at all, you come to me immediately. Cameron Blackwood is not someone to cross. I spent the next 2 hours transforming the penthouse suite into a pristine sanctuary. The space was breathtaking even by the Aurelia's standards. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Chicago's skyline, a living room larger than my entire apartment, a master bedroom with a bed that could sleep 4, and a bathroom appointed with Italian marble and gold fixtures. Following Marco's instructions, I arranged the towels in precise stacks, positioned the luxury toiletries at exact angles, and ensured every surface gleamed. I filled the ice bucket, stocked the bar with top-shelf liquor, and placed fresh flowers in the crystal vases throughout the suite. As I worked, my mind kept returning to Marco's warning. Cameron Blackwood. Powerful and dangerous. The kind of man who existed in a different universe from mine. A world where $30,000 for a week's stay was pocket change. I was putting the finishing touches on the bedroom when I felt it. A sudden, sharp cramp low in my abdomen that made me gasp and brace myself against the dresser. Panic seized me as the pain intensified, spreading across my lower back. No, not now. Please, not now. The cramp gradually eased, and I straightened slowly, my hand protectively covering my stomach. Just a false alarm, I told myself, probably from standing too long. But my hands trembled as I finished my work, and a cold fear had settled in my chest. I needed to see a doctor, needed to make sure everything was okay with the baby. But the appointment was still 2 weeks away, and the thought of paying for an emergency visit made me want to cry. By the time I finished the penthouse, it was nearly 6 in the evening. My entire body ached, and the cramping had returned, milder but persistent. I headed back to the staff area to clock out, desperate to get home and rest. Clara, wait. Marco caught me at the time clock. Mr. Blackwood's arrived early. He's requesting immediate turn-down service. Now? I couldn't keep the dismay from my voice. But I just finished. He wants the bed prepared and his evening preferences set up. It'll take 10 minutes, 15 tops. Marco's expression was apologetic, but firm. Please, Clara, I need my best on this. I wanted to refuse, to tell him I was cramping and exhausted and terrified something might be wrong with my baby. But I saw the desperation in Marco's eyes and heard myself saying, "Of course, I'll head up now." The penthouse floor was eerily quiet when I exited the service elevator. Unlike the lower floors, this level housed only 2 suites, and currently only 1 was occupied. I could hear low voices from behind Blackwood's door as I approached with my cart. The guest and at least 2 other men. I knocked softly and waited. When no one answered after 30 seconds, I used my master key and pushed the door open slowly. "Housekeeping," I called out, my voice barely above a whisper. The voices had stopped. The suite appeared empty, though I could smell expensive cologne and cigar smoke lingering in the air. I worked quickly, moving through the living room to reach the bedroom. As I was turning down the bed, folding the sheets at precise angles and fluffing the pillows, I felt another cramp. This one was stronger, stealing my breath. I gripped the edge of the mattress, willing it to pass. That's when I heard footsteps behind me. "What the hell are you doing in my room?" The voice was deep, cultured, and edged with steel. I spun around and found myself face to face with Cameron Blackwood. He was nothing like I'd expected. Tall, broad-shouldered, probably in his mid-30s, he filled the doorway with a presence that made the spacious bedroom feel suddenly cramped. His dark hair was slightly disheveled, his charcoal suit jacket removed to reveal a white dress shirt with the first 4 buttons undone, exposing a muscled chest. But it was his eyes that trapped me, steel gray and penetrating, assessing me with an intensity that made me feel stripped bare. I'm sorry, sir," I stammered, stepping back from the bed. "Housekeeping. Your manager requested turn-down service." His gaze traveled over me, lingering a moment too long, and something flickered in his expression. Recognition? Impossible. Men like Cameron Blackwood didn't notice women like me. "You," he said slowly, his voice changing. "I know you." My heart stopped. "No, sir, I don't think—" "The hotel party, 6 months ago." He moved closer, his eyes narrowing. "You were serving drinks at the annual charity gala the Aurelia hosted. You had your hair down. You were wearing a black dress." The memory hit me like a physical blow. The gala. The one event each year where the housekeeping staff was pressed into service as waiters because the hotel was short-staffed. I'd served drinks for 3 hours before my shift ended, desperate for the extra pay they'd offered. And there had been a man. A beautiful, dangerous man who'd smiled at me across the crowded ballroom. Who'd found me later in one of the service corridors and— oh God. "I need to go," I whispered, abandoning the bed half-made and rushing toward the door. His hand shot out, catching my wrist. Not painful, but firm enough to stop me. "Wait. Please, Mr. Blackwood. I have other rooms to service. You left before I woke up." His voice was soft now, almost gentle, which somehow made it more terrifying. "I looked for you, asked about you, but no one knew who you were." The night came flooding back in vivid detail. How he'd cornered me in the corridor with that predatory smile. How he'd asked my name and I'd lied, given him some generic response I couldn't even remember now. How he'd invited me to his suite for a drink and I'd said yes, swept up in the impossibility of it all. This gorgeous, powerful man wanting me. I'd known it was a mistake even as it was happening. Known I was just a distraction, a moment's entertainment. But for one night, I'd let myself pretend I was someone else. Someone who belonged in his world. And then I'd crept out at dawn before he woke, returning to my real life where I cleaned toilets and worried about rent. "That was a mistake," I managed to say, pulling against his grip. "Please, just let me go." "A mistake," he repeated, and something dark entered his expression. His gaze dropped, tracking down my body until it settled on my midsection. On the small bump that my uniform couldn't quite hide anymore. The air in the room changed, charged with sudden tension. "How far along?" he asked, his voice deadly quiet. "What? How far along are you?" He released my wrist but didn't step back, effectively caging me against the wall. "How many months pregnant?" I couldn't speak, couldn't think past the roaring in my ears. "Answer me, Clara." The use of my name startled me. He'd been listening when I'd called out. "How many months?" 4, I whispered, the lie catching in my throat. "But it's not." 4 months. He did the math instantly, his eyes widening. 4 months, since our night together. "It's not yours," I said desperately. "I had a boyfriend. The baby is his." But even as I said it, I knew the truth. Derek and I had broken up 5 months before the gala, and there had been no one since. No one except this man currently staring at me like I'd just confirmed his worst fear and greatest desire simultaneously. "You're lying," Cameron said flatly. "I'm not." "You're lying to protect him." His hand moved to my stomach before I could stop him, his palm warm through the thin fabric of my uniform. "This is mine, my child." The possessiveness in his voice sent fear spiraling through me. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. "Mr. Blackwood, please." "Cameron," he corrected, his thumb stroking across my belly in a gesture that should have been tender but felt like a brand of ownership. "You'll call me Cameron, and you'll tell me the truth. Is this my baby?" I stared into those steel-gray eyes and saw no mercy there, no room for negotiation. This was a man accustomed to getting exactly what he wanted, by whatever means necessary. And right now, he wanted the truth. The cramp hit again, harder this time, and I gasped, doubling over. Cameron caught me before I could fall, his arms strong and sure as he lifted me effortlessly. "What's wrong?" The command in his voice had shifted to concern. "Are you in pain?" "Cramping," I managed through gritted teeth. "It's been happening all day." His jaw tightened, and he carried me to the bed I'd been turning down moments before. "How long?" "A few hours, maybe more." "Have you seen a doctor?" "My appointment isn't for 2 weeks. Christ." He pulled out his phone, already dialing. "Yes, I need Dr. Chen at the Aurelia Grand immediately. Penthouse suite. Pregnant woman, approximately 4 months along, experiencing abdominal cramping. 20 minutes? Make it 10. He hung up and focused on me again, his expression unreadable. "My personal physician will be here shortly. Don't move." "I can't afford. I'm paying." He said it as if the matter was already settled. "You're carrying my child. From this moment forward, every expense related to this pregnancy is my responsibility." "You don't know it's yours," I protested weakly, but we both heard the lie in my voice. Cameron's hand returned to my stomach, possessive and sure. "It's mine. I knew it the moment I saw you. And Clara?" He leaned closer, his breath warm against my ear. "By the end of tonight, you're going to admit it." Dr. Morrison arrived in less than 15 minutes. A silver-haired woman in her 60s, carrying a leather medical bag that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Cameron had spent the intervening time pacing the suite like a caged predator, his phone pressed to his ear as he conducted hushed conversations in a language I didn't recognize. Russian, maybe. Or Italian. "Mr. Blackwood," the doctor greeted him with professional familiarity, before turning her attention to me. "And you must be Clara. I'm Dr. Morrison. Let's see what we're dealing with." She examined me with efficient thoroughness, asking questions about my symptoms, my prenatal care, and my medical history. I answered as best I could, acutely aware of Cameron hovering nearby, listening to every word. "When was your last ultrasound?" Dr. Morrison asked, her hands gently probing my abdomen. "I haven't had one yet," I admitted. "My first appointment is in 2 weeks." Her eyebrows rose slightly, and I saw disapproval flicker across her features. "You're 4 months along and haven't had any ultrasounds? No blood work?" Shame burned my cheeks. I couldn't afford it. The basic insurance through the hotel doesn't cover much, and that changes now. Cameron interrupted from where he leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "Whatever she needs, you provide it. Money is not a concern." Dr. Morrison nodded, unsurprised by his declaration. She'd clearly dealt with Cameron Blackwood's demands before. "The cramping appears to be round ligament pain, which is common as the uterus expands. However, given the lack of prenatal care, I'd like to do an ultrasound tonight to ensure everything is progressing normally." "You have equipment with you?" I asked, surprised. A small smile touched her lips. "Mr. Blackwood is a thorough man. When he says he needs a doctor immediately, I come prepared for anything. She pulled a portable ultrasound machine from her bag. This won't be as detailed as what you'd get in a hospital, but it will give us a good baseline. 20 minutes later, I was staring at a grainy black and white image on the small screen, listening to the rapid whoosh-whoosh of my baby's heartbeat filling the quiet bedroom. Dr. Morrison pointed out the head, the tiny limbs, the flutter of the heart itself. "Everything looks healthy," she announced. "Strong heartbeat, good size for gestational age. Based on measurements, I'd estimate you're about 17 weeks along. Due date would be late April." 17 weeks, 4 months. Exactly the amount of time since the gala. Cameron moved closer, his eyes fixed on the screen with an intensity that made my breath catch. His hand found mine, squeezing gently, and I was too overwhelmed to pull away. "Can you tell the gender?" he asked, his voice rougher than usual. "It's still early, but—" "Doctor," Morrison adjusted the wand, studying the image. "If you want to know, I believe I can give you an educated guess. I should have said no, should have maintained some control over this situation that was spiraling further from my grasp by the moment. But I found myself nodding. It appears to be a girl," the doctor said softly, "though I'd recommend confirming at your 20-week scan." A girl. I was having a daughter. Cameron's hand tightened on mine, and when I dared to glance at him, I saw something raw and vulnerable flash across his features before his mask of control slammed back into place. "A daughter," he murmured, and the possessiveness in his voice sent a shiver down my spine. After Dr. Morrison left with instructions for rest and a prescription for prenatal vitamins that Cameron assured her would be filled immediately, silence fell over the suite. I sat on the edge of the bed, my mind spinning with the implications of everything that had just happened. Cameron stood at the windows, his back to me, silhouetted against the Chicago skyline. He'd rolled up his sleeves at some point, revealing forearms corded with muscle. Even in stillness, he radiated controlled power. "I need to go home," I said finally, breaking the silence. "My shift ended hours ago." "No." He didn't turn around. "Excuse me? You're not going anywhere tonight? Dr. Morrison said you need rest, and I intend to ensure you get it." Anger flared through my exhaustion. "You can't keep me here. I have a life, an apartment." "A life?" He turned then, and the look in his eyes made my protest die. "Tell me about this life, Clara. The one where you're working double shifts while pregnant, living in whatever cheap apartment you can afford, hiding your condition from your employer because you're terrified of losing your job." His voice was soft, deadly. "That life?" Tears burned my eyes. "It's my life. Mine to live how I choose." "And my daughter?" He moved closer with that predatory grace. "Does she get a choice in being raised in poverty when her father has more money than he could spend in 3 lifetimes? You don't know she's yours," I shot back, even though we both knew it was a lie. Cameron crouched in front of me, bringing us eye level. "Stop lying, Clara. The timing is exact. You admitted you hadn't been with anyone else. And I can see it in your eyes. You know this baby is mine." I looked away, unable to hold his penetrating gaze. "Even if she is, that doesn't give you the right to control my life." "No," he agreed, "but it gives me the right to protect my child, and right now, that means protecting you." His hand cupped my cheek, forcing me to meet his eyes. "You will stay here tonight. Tomorrow we'll discuss long-term arrangements." "Long-term arrangements?" The words came out strangled. "You're carrying a Blackwood, Clara. That makes you both my responsibility now." He stood, moving to the phone. "I'm having dinner sent up. You need to eat." As he ordered food, I tried to process what was happening. This morning I'd been a hotel maid, alone and terrified, struggling to figure out how I'd survive the next 5 months. Now I was trapped in a penthouse with a man who'd decided to claim ownership of my unborn child. No, not just the child. Me. The food arrived on rolling carts pushed by white-gloved servers who didn't meet my eyes. They set up the meal on the dining table near the windows. Filet mignon, roasted vegetables, fresh salad, and a dessert that looked too beautiful to eat. "I'm not hungry," I said stubbornly, though my stomach growled traitorously at the sight of real food. Cameron pulled out a chair. "Sit. Eat. You heard Dr. Morrison. You're underweight for how far along you are." "I've been eating fine. Peanut butter sandwiches and crackers?" He raised an eyebrow. "Jenny mentioned your lunch today when I asked about you." Ice flooded my veins. "You talked to Jenny? What did you tell her?" "That I recognized you from a previous visit and wanted to ensure you were being treated well by hotel management." His expression was bland. "Relax, Clara. Your secret is safe. For now." The threat was implicit. Cooperate, or he'd expose my pregnancy to Marco and cost me my job. I sat and ate mechanically, tasting nothing. Cameron sat across from me, watching my every movement with an intensity that made my skin prickle. When I couldn't manage another bite, he allowed me to stop. "The bedroom is through there," he said, gesturing. "You'll sleep in the master suite tonight." "Where will you sleep?" "There's a second bedroom. I'll be close enough to hear if you need anything." The consideration should have comforted me. Instead, it reinforced how completely I'd lost control of my situation. "This is kidnapping," I said quietly. "This is protection." He moved closer, his hand settling over my stomach with possessive certainty. "From this moment forward, you and our daughter are under my care. I know you're frightened, Clara. I know you don't trust me. But you will learn that I protect what's mine. I'm not yours." His smile was predatory. "You became mine the night you let me into your bed. You just didn't know it yet." That night, I lay in Cameron's massive bed, wearing one of his t-shirts because I had no other clothes, staring at the ceiling. My mind raced with escape plans, with arguments I should have made, with the terrifying reality of my situation. Cameron Blackwood wasn't going to let me go. He'd made that abundantly clear. And the worst part? A small, traitorous part of me didn't want to escape. The part that remembered how he'd held me when the cramping hit, how he'd summoned a doctor immediately, how he'd looked at that ultrasound image with wonder and fierce protectiveness. No one had ever protected me before. I'd been on my own since my mother died when I was 19, scraping by on minimum wage jobs and determination. The idea of someone strong enough to shield me and my daughter from the world was seductive in its simplicity, but at what cost? What did Cameron Blackwood really want? And what would happen when he discovered that I wasn't the meek, grateful woman he seemed to expect? Morning came too soon. I woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and the smell of coffee. For a moment, I forgot where I was. Then reality crashed back. Cameron sat in an armchair near the bed, already dressed in another expensive suit, his laptop open on his knee. When he noticed I was awake, he set it aside. "Good morning. How do you feel?" "Like my life is spinning out of control," I said honestly. "That's because you're trying to control things beyond your power." He stood, moving to the bedside. "Stop fighting this, Clara. Accept that your circumstances have changed." "Changed?" I sat up, pushing hair from my face. "Yesterday I was independent. Today I'm what? Your prisoner? Your kept woman? Today you're the mother of my child," he corrected. "And you'll be treated accordingly." He pulled an envelope from his jacket and handed it to me. "Open it." Inside was a check for $50,000 made out to me. I stared at the number, my mind unable to process it. "What is this?" The beginning of your financial security. There's also a credit card with your name on it, no limit, and keys to a condo I own downtown. 2 bedrooms, full security, much nicer than wherever you're currently living. You can't just... I can, and I will. He sat on the edge of the bed. You have 2 choices, Clara. You can accept my help gracefully, or you can fight me every step of the way. But the outcome will be the same. You and my daughter will be cared for, protected, and provided for. The only variable is how difficult you make it. This is insane. You don't even know me. I know enough. I know you're stubborn, proud, and scared. I know you've been struggling alone for months. I know you care more about that baby than your own comfort. His hand found my stomach again, that now familiar possessive touch. And I know you're mine, whether you want to admit it or not. One night doesn't make me yours. No, he agreed, but this does. His palm pressed firmer against where our daughter grew. You're carrying my legacy, Clara, my heir. That binds us together far more permanently than any marriage certificate. The mention of marriage sent panic through me. I'm not marrying you. Not yet, he said calmly, as if it was inevitable. First, you need to understand what being under my protection means, what being mine truly entails. Over the next 3 days, I learned exactly what that meant. Cameron installed me in his downtown condo, a stunning 2-bedroom space with modern finishes and views of Lake Michigan. My shabby apartment belongings looked ridiculous in the elegant space, and within 24 hours, those had been supplemented with new furniture, new clothes, and enough baby supplies to outfit a nursery 3 times over. A car service appeared each morning to take me to prenatal appointments Cameron had scheduled with the city's top obstetrician. Not Dr. Morrison. Apparently she was only for emergencies, but a renowned specialist who handled high-risk pregnancies for Chicago's elite. I tried to go back to work at the Aurelia, but Marco called me into his office with regret in his eyes. Clara, I received word that you're no longer available for your position. I'm told to give you this. He handed me an envelope containing 3-month severance and a glowing letter of recommendation. Who told you I wasn't available? I demanded, though I already knew. Marco's silence was answer enough. Cameron had effectively removed my ability to support myself, making me completely dependent on him. When I confronted him about it that evening, he was unapologetic. You don't need to work, he said simply, pouring himself a drink in the condo's kitchen. Your only job now is taking care of yourself and our daughter. You had no right. I have every right. You were on your feet 12 hours a day, exposing yourself and my child to unnecessary risk. That ends now. So what am I supposed to do? Sit here and wait for you to decide what's best for me? He set down his glass and moved toward me with that predatory grace. You're supposed to rest, eat properly, attend your medical appointments, and get used to the fact that your old life is over. You can't just erase who I am. I'm not erasing you, Clara. I'm elevating you. His hands framed my face, thumbs stroking my cheekbones. You were surviving. Barely. Now you'll thrive. You and our daughter will want for nothing. Except freedom, I whispered. Something flickered in his eyes. You're not a prisoner. The condo is yours. Go wherever you want. Do whatever you please. But know that wherever you go, my men will follow. Your safety and the baby's safety are non-negotiable. And they did follow. I discovered Cameron's reach extended throughout Chicago when I tried to have coffee with Jenny, and found 2 men in dark suits seated at a nearby table, watching. When I went to the grocery store, they shadowed me through the aisles. When I took a walk along the lakefront, they maintained a careful distance, but never let me out of sight. This is suffocating, I told Cameron after a week of constant surveillance. This is protection, he countered. You have no idea how many people would love to hurt me through you. Through our daughter. What are you involved in, Cameron? What kind of danger are we really in? His expression shuddered. The less you know, the safer you are. Trust me to handle the threats. But I couldn't trust him. Not fully. Because underneath his protective behavior lurked something darker, more possessive. The way he touched me constantly. My stomach, my face, my hand, as if marking his territory. The way he appeared at the condo unexpectedly, sometimes in the middle of the night, just to check on me. The way he'd replaced all my clothes with expensive designer pieces in styles he preferred. And then there were the nights he stayed over, claiming the guest bedroom but always finding reasons to be near me, to help me when morning sickness hit, to rub my aching feet after appointments, to sit beside me on the couch, his hand on my growing belly, talking softly to our daughter. Those moments were the most dangerous because they made me forget who he was, what he was. They made me lean into his strength and pretend this was real, that we were a real couple expecting a real baby together, instead of two strangers bound by one reckless night. 2 weeks after moving into the condo, I finally received the information I'd been dreading. Cameron had hired a private investigator to track down Derek, my ex-boyfriend. The report arrived in an unmarked envelope, and Cameron handed it to me over breakfast. Your ex-boyfriend, he said, his voice carefully neutral. The one you claimed was the father. Did you want to know what happened to him? My hands trembled as I opened the envelope. Inside were photos of Derek, alive, healthy, living in Arizona with a new girlfriend. The timeline was clear. He'd left Chicago a week after I told him I was pregnant. He knew, I whispered, staring at the evidence. He knew I was pregnant, and he ran. Yes. Cameron's voice was cold. He abandoned you when you needed him most, and you were going to let me believe he was the father. I thought... My throat closed. I thought if you believed the baby wasn't yours, you'd leave us alone. Clara. He took the papers from my shaking hands and set them aside, then pulled me into his lap with surprising gentleness. You need to understand something. I would never have left you alone. The moment I recognized you, the moment I saw you were pregnant and realized the timing, there was no scenario where I walked away. Why? I asked, my face pressed against his shoulder. You don't even know me. I know enough. His hand stroked my hair. And I'm learning more every day, like how you're terrified of depending on anyone, how you'd rather struggle alone than accept help, how you protect that baby with every fiber of your being. She's all I have. No. His hand settled over my stomach. She's all we have. Together. I pulled back to look at him, seeing determination and something else in those steel-gray eyes. Something that looked almost like tenderness. What do you want from me, Cameron? Really? Everything, he said simply. Your trust, your acceptance, eventually your heart. But for now, I'll settle for your cooperation. Stop fighting me, Clara. Stop trying to find ways to escape. Accept that this is your life now. You, me, and our daughter. A family. We're not a family. Not yet, he agreed, his thumb tracing my lower lip. But we will be. Because I protect what's mine, Clara. And you're mine now, whether you're ready to admit it or not. The problem was, some part of me was beginning to believe him. The Chicago winter settled over the city like a gray blanket, and with it came a shift in my relationship with Cameron Blackwood. 3 weeks had passed since that first night in the penthouse. 3 weeks of living in his condo under his watchful protection, and I was beginning to understand the man behind the dangerous reputation. He was nothing like I'd expected. Yes, He was controlling and impossibly arrogant, but he was also surprisingly attentive to my needs. When I mentioned craving Thai food at 2 a.m, it appeared within 30 minutes. When I complained about the condo being too cold, he had someone install a new heating system the next day. When I cried during a particularly emotional prenatal appointment, hormones mixed with fear, he held me without question or judgment. But I still didn't trust him. Couldn't trust him. Because despite all his care, he never told me the truth about who he really was or what he really did. Until the night everything changed. I was reading in the living room, my hand absently stroking my growing belly, 20 weeks now, the bump impossible to hide, when Cameron arrived. It was past midnight, and he looked different. His suit jacket was gone, his shirt untucked and stained with something dark. His knuckles were split and bleeding. "What happened?" I asked, setting my book aside as alarm spiked through me. "Business," he said shortly, heading toward the guest bathroom. I followed without thinking. "Cameron, you're bleeding. Let me help." "I'm fine." "You're clearly not fine." I pushed past him into the bathroom and grabbed the first aid kit I'd insisted he keep there. "Sit." For a moment, I thought he'd refuse. Then he sank onto the edge of the bathtub with a weary sigh, extending his damaged hands. I knelt before him, carefully cleaning the blood away to reveal split knuckles and bruised flesh. "Did you hit someone?" I asked quietly. "Several someones." "Why?" His jaw tightened. They needed to be reminded of certain rules, consequences for breaking them. I dabbed antiseptic on the wounds, watching him wince. "What kind of business are you in, Cameron? Really?" "The kind that keeps you safe." He caught my hand before I could pull away. "The kind that makes it possible for me to protect you and our daughter from people who would hurt you to hurt me." "But what is it? Import-export? Real estate?" I met his eyes. "Or something else?" He was silent for a long moment, studying my face as if weighing how much to reveal. "My family came to Chicago from Sicily 3 generations ago. My grandfather built an empire from nothing. Real estate, construction, restaurants, nightclubs, all legitimate businesses." "And the illegitimate ones?" I pressed. "Those came later, when legitimate business wasn't enough to protect what we'd built. When rivals thought they could take what was ours." His voice hardened. "My father taught me that power is the only currency that matters in this world. The power to protect, to provide, to punish those who cross us." "You're Mafia," I whispered, though I'd suspected it from the beginning. "I prefer businessman with traditional values," he said with a ghost of a smile. "But yes, Clara, I operate in both light and shadow." "Does that frighten you?" "It should have. It should have sent me running." But I thought of the past 3 weeks, of how safe I'd felt despite everything, of how Cameron's men had stopped a drunk man from harassing me on the street with such efficiency the police never even became involved. "It should," I admitted. "But I think I've known all along. The security, the way people defer to you, the fact that you could make me disappear from my job with a phone call." I finished bandaging his hands. "What frightens me more is what happens when your enemies discover I exist. When they learn about her." My hand moved to my belly, and Cameron's followed, covering mine. "No one will hurt you," he said fiercely. "I would burn this city to the ground before I let anyone touch you or our daughter." Is that supposed to be comforting? "It's supposed to be the truth." He pulled me closer, until I was standing between his knees. "I need you to understand something, Clara. The life I lead, the choices I make, they're not good or noble. I won't pretend to be something I'm not. But everything I do to protect what's mine." "And we're yours," I said softly. Not a question anymore. "Yes." His hand slid up to cup my face. You became mine the night I found you in that penthouse. Maybe even before that, the night we first came together. And I don't let go of what's mine. What if I want to leave? His expression darkened. Then I'd stop you. I'd lock you in the safest place I could find and keep you there until you understood that running from me is futile. He leaned closer, his breath warm against my lips. But you don't want to leave anymore, do you, Clara? I should have said yes. Should have maintained that fiction. But something had shifted between us over the past weeks. Something I was terrified to name. I don't know what I want, I whispered. Liar. His thumb traced my lower lip. You want the same thing I do. You're just too stubborn to admit it. And what do you want? This. He kissed me then, softly at first, giving me time to pull away. When I didn't, the kiss deepened, his hands tangling in my hair as mine clutched his shoulders. It was nothing like our first night together, that had been frantic, desperate, fueled by champagne and recklessness. This was deliberate, claiming, a promise of things to come. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Cameron pressed his forehead to mine. I want you, Clara. Not just because you're carrying my child. I want you in my bed, in my life, by my side. I want to wake up to you every morning and fall asleep with you every night. I want to marry you and make you mine in every way that matters. My heart hammered against my ribs. Cameron, I know it's too soon. I know you need time to trust me. But I'm a patient man when it comes to things I truly want. His hand slid down to rest on my belly. And I've never wanted anything more than this. Than you. Than the family we're creating. This is insane, I breathed. We barely know each other. Then let me show you who I am. He stood, pulling me with him. Come with me. There's something I need you to see. He led me to the guest bedroom he'd been using and opened his laptop. On the screen was a photo of a beautiful house, no, an estate, set on sprawling grounds with a view of the lake. What is this? I asked. Our home, if you'll accept it. He pulled up more photos, a nursery painted in soft yellows and greens, a master bedroom with windows overlooking the water, a kitchen that would make a professional chef weep. I bought it 2 weeks ago. The nursery is already being prepared. Security is being installed. Everything is ready. We just need to move in. I stared at the images, overwhelmed. You bought a house without asking me? I bought a home for my family. He turned me to face him. For you, for our daughter, for any other children we might have. A safe place, away from the city, where you can raise our family without fear. Other children? My voice came out strangled. Did you think I'd be satisfied with just one? His hand splayed possessively across my stomach. You're mine, Clara. That means everything you are, everything you'll be, belongs to me, including the children you'll give me. The possessiveness should have terrified me. Instead, it sent heat pooling low in my belly. You're insane. About you? Yes. He kissed me again, slower this time. Say yes, Clara. Move into the house with me. Let me take care of you properly. Let me show you what your life can be. And if I say no? His smile was predatory. Then I'll convince you. I'll court you, seduce you, show you every day why being mine is exactly where you belong. But the outcome will be the same. You'll say yes eventually. You'll accept that this is your future. Our future. You're very sure of yourself. I'm sure of us. His hand covered mine on my belly. She's already binding us together, Clara. Every day she grows stronger, the connection between us deepens. You feel it too. Stop fighting it. I wanted to deny it, but I couldn't. Over the past weeks, something had indeed been growing between us. Not just tolerance or acceptance, but something deeper. Something that terrified me with its intensity. I need time, I said finally, to think, to process all of this. Take the time you need. He pulled me against his chest, his arms wrapping around me from behind, his hands joining mine on my belly. But know this, Clara. Time won't change the fundamental truth. You're mine. Our daughter is mine. And sooner or later, you'll stop running from that reality and embrace it. That night, I lay in bed thinking about everything he'd said, about the house waiting for us, about his declaration of wanting more children, about the life he was offering. It was seductive in its simplicity. Safety, security, a family. Everything I'd never had growing up. Everything I desperately wanted to give my daughter. But at what cost? Cameron Blackwood was dangerous, violent, a man who lived in shadows and solved problems with his fists. Could I really tie my life to someone like that? Could I raise my daughter in that world? The baby kicked, a strong flutter that made me smile despite my confusion. She was getting stronger every day, more real. In 4 months, she'd be here, and I'd need to have made a decision about our future. The next morning, I found Cameron in the kitchen making breakfast, or rather, overseeing the chef he'd hired to prepare our meals. He looked at me with those penetrating gray eyes, assessing my mood. I want to see the house, I said. Satisfaction flickered across his features. When? Today? Now? Before I change my mind. An hour later, we were driving north along the lake, Chicago's skyline receding behind us. The estate was even more beautiful in person. A modern masterpiece of glass and stone that somehow felt warm and welcoming rather than cold. Cameron led me through room after room, each more stunning than the last. But it was the nursery that broke me. He'd had it decorated in soft neutrals with whimsical animals painted on the walls. A rocking chair sat by the window, a crib weighted with fresh linens, and shelves held more books and toys than one child could use in a lifetime. You did all this? I asked, tears pricking my eyes. I wanted her to have everything. He moved behind me, his arms encircling my waist, his hands resting on my belly. I want you both to have everything. Why? I turned in his arms. Why do you care so much? It was one night, Cameron. One mistake. It wasn't a mistake. His voice was fierce. It was fate, destiny, whatever you want to call it. I've been with many women, Clara. But I never forgot you. Never stopped looking for you. When I saw you in that penthouse, pregnant with my child, it felt like the universe was giving me exactly what I needed. And what's that? A reason, he said simply. A reason to build something lasting, instead of just maintaining my father's empire. A reason to want more than just power and control. You and our daughter give me that reason. I searched his face, looking for deception, for manipulation. But all I saw was raw honesty. Cameron Blackwood, the man everyone feared, was laying himself bare before me. I'm scared, I admitted. Scared of how much power you have over me. Scared of what loving you would mean. Love? His eyes flared with heat. Is that what you feel, Clara? I don't know what I feel. It's too much. Too fast. 3 weeks ago, I was alone. Now I'm here, in this house, talking about our future like it's already decided. It is decided. He pulled me closer. But I understand your fear, so here's what we'll do. You move in here with me, not as my prisoner, but as my partner. You have full access to everything, the cars, the accounts, the staff. If you want to leave, you can. I won't stop you. You won't. No. Because you won't leave. You'll stay because you choose to. Because this is where you belong. His hand cupped my face. I'm betting everything on that choice, Clara. On you choosing me. Choosing us. It was a gamble, and we both knew it. But as I stood there in the nursery he'd prepared for our daughter, feeling his hands on my body and seeing the future he was offering, I realized I'd already made my choice. Okay, I whispered. I'll move in. But Cameron, if you hurt me, if you betray my trust, I won't. He kissed me softly. You're mine to protect, not harm. You and our daughter are the most precious things in my world. I would die before I let anything happen to either of you. And looking into his steel-gray eyes, I believed him. We moved into the house that weekend. Cameron's staff had already transported my meager belongings from the condo, though they looked ridiculous among the expensive furnishings. Within days, he'd had a designer come to get my preferences for making the space truly ours. But more than the physical move, something else was shifting. Cameron was true to his word. He gave me freedom within boundaries. I could go where I pleased, do what I wanted, as long as I accepted the security detail that followed me everywhere. He also began courting me in earnest. Flowers appeared daily, gifts that showed he'd been paying attention to my interests, books I'd mentioned wanting to read, art supplies when I expressed interest in painting the nursery myself, even a piano when he discovered I'd taken lessons as a child. The nights were the hardest. Cameron maintained a careful distance, sleeping in the master bedroom while I occupied a guest suite. But I'd catch him watching me with hunger in his eyes, his restraint palpable. He was waiting for me to come to him, to make the choice to be his in every way. And God help me, I wanted to. It was during my 24-week checkup that everything finally crystallized. The ultrasound showed our daughter's face clearly for the first time, tiny features that were somehow already perfect. Cameron stared at the screen with such wonder that something in my chest cracked open. "She's beautiful," he murmured, his hand tightening on mine. "She has your nose," I said, seeing the resemblance already. "And your mouth." He traced my lips with his thumb. "She's going to be perfect, Clara. Just like her mother." That night I went to his room. He was reading in bed, glasses perched on his nose, a vulnerable look I'd never seen on him before. When he noticed me in the doorway wearing only one of his shirts, his book slowly lowered. "Clara?" "I'm tired of fighting this," I said, crossing to him. "Tired of pretending I don't want you, that I don't need you." He set the book aside, removing his glasses with deliberate care. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying yes. To the house, to us, to whatever future we're building." I climbed onto the bed, straddling his lap. "I'm saying I choose you, Cameron Blackwood. I choose us." His hand settled on my hips, his eyes blazing. "You're sure? Because once I have you, Clara, I'm never letting you go." "I know." I leaned down, my lips brushing his. "I'm counting on it." What followed was nothing like our first night together. That had been frantic, anonymous, a moment stolen from reality. This was deliberate, intimate, acclaiming on both sides. Cameron worshipped my changing body with reverent hands and whispered endearments, showing me exactly what it meant to be his. Afterward, I lay in his arms, my head on his chest, his hand stroking my hair while the other rested possessively on my belly. "I meant what I said," he murmured into the darkness. "About wanting more children, about building a family with you." I know. I trace patterns on his chest, and it terrifies me, but it also feels right, like this is what was always supposed to happen. It was. He tilted my face up to kiss me softly. From the moment we met, this was inevitable. We just needed time to accept it. So what happens now? Now? His smile was both tender and possessive. Now we prepare for our daughter, and then I marry you. Make you Mrs. Blackwood in every way that matters. Is that a proposal? It's a promise. His hand tightened on my belly. You're mine, Clara. My woman, my family, my future, and I protect what's mine. As I drifted toward sleep in his arms, I finally understood what he meant. Cameron Blackwood's possession wasn't about control or ownership. It was about absolute, unwavering commitment. About choosing someone and never wavering, never doubting, never letting go. And for the first time in my life, I felt truly safe, truly home. The first threat came exactly 3 weeks after I moved into the estate. I was in the nursery, painting delicate butterflies on the wall above the crib, when Cameron burst through the door with a look on his face that made my blood run cold. "Pack a bag," he said tersely. "We're leaving, now." "What? Why?" I set down my paintbrush, alarm spiking through me. "Someone leaked information about you and the baby. One of my rivals knows you exist." His jaw was tight, fury barely contained. "Until I neutralize the threat, we're going somewhere more secure." Within 30 minutes, we were in an SUV with darkened windows, flanked by 2 other vehicles full of Cameron's men. He wouldn't tell me where we were going. His attention focused on his phone as he coordinated whatever countermeasures he was implementing. We ended up at a private airfield where a jet waited. Cameron ushered me aboard with a hand at the small of my back, his touch both comforting and commanding. "Cameron, you're scaring me," I said, as the plane taxied down the runway. "What's happening? Who knows about us?" He pulled me against his side, his arm wrapping protectively around my shoulders. "Giovanni Rossi. He runs operations in the South Side. We've been competing for control of the port for the past year, and he's losing." His hand moved to my belly, a now familiar possessive gesture. "He thinks threatening you and the baby will give him leverage over me." Terror flooded through me. "Will it work?" "No." His voice was iron. "Because he won't get the chance to touch you. I'm taking you somewhere he can't reach you while I deal with this." We flew for 2 hours before landing at another private airfield. From there, another convoy of SUVs took us to a compound hidden in the mountains. It was beautiful in a stark way. A modern fortress of stone and glass, surrounded by pine forests, and guarded by men with automatic weapons. "This is one of my secure locations," Cameron explained as we entered. "No one knows about it except my inner circle. You'll be safe here." Safe, but trapped. The compound was comfortable. Spacious rooms, gourmet kitchen, every amenity I could want. But the armed guards and remote location made it clear this was a gilded cage. And Cameron had to leave almost immediately to deal with the Rossi threat. "I'll be back in 3 days," he promised, pulling me into his arms at the helipad. "4 at most. Marco will be in charge of your security while I'm gone." Marco was a bear of a man with kind eyes and an accent that spoke of Eastern Europe. He nodded respectfully when Cameron introduced us, then positioned himself at a discreet distance. "I don't want you to go," I admitted, hating how small my voice sounded. Cameron's expression softened. He cupped my face in both hands, his thumbs stroking my cheekbones. "I have to handle this personally. If I show any weakness, any hesitation, others will see you as a vulnerability to exploit. I need to send a message that threatening my family means death. Just come back to us," I whispered, my hand covering his on my belly. "Please. Always." He kissed me then, deep and possessive, a claiming that left me breathless. "You're mine, Clara. Nothing and no one will keep me from you." I watched his helicopter disappear into the sky, fear clawing at my chest. For the first time, I truly understood the price of being Cameron Blackwood's woman. The danger was real, immediate, and terrifying. The next 3 days crawled by. Marco kept me updated in broad terms. Cameron was handling the situation. Everything was under control. No cause for concern. But I heard the tension in his voice, saw the way the guards doubled their patrols. I tried to stay busy. I read, painted, talked to the baby growing inside me. At 26 weeks now, she was active, kicking and rolling constantly. I found myself talking to her about her father, about the man who was out there protecting us in ways I didn't want to imagine. "Your daddy is complicated," I told my belly as I lay in bed the second night. "He's dangerous and possessive and sometimes terrifying. But he loves us. I know he does. And he'll do anything to keep us safe." The baby kicked in response, and I smiled despite my fear. Cameron returned on the 4th day, appearing at dawn with exhaustion etched into every line of his face. But when he saw me, something in his expression eased. He crossed to where I sat at breakfast and pulled me into his arms, holding me so tightly I could barely breathe. "It's done," he murmured against my hair. "You're safe. The baby's safe. Rossi won't be a problem anymore." I didn't ask what done meant. Didn't want to know the details of what he'd done to eliminate the threat. Instead, I held him close, breathing in his familiar scent, relief making me weak. "Take me home," I whispered. "Please, I want to go home." That evening, we returned to the estate. As Cameron led me inside, something felt different. Not just relief at being back, but a shift in our dynamic. I'd spent 4 days terrified of losing him, of raising our daughter alone, of facing the dangers of his world without him. And I'd realized something crucial. I needed him. Not just for protection or financial security, but because I loved him. I loved Cameron Blackwood, with all his darkness and danger and possessive intensity. "Cameron," I said as we stood in our bedroom now, not his. "I need to tell you something." He turned from where he was removing his jacket, concern flickering in his eyes. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. I moved closer, my hand resting on his chest over his heart. "While you were gone, I realized something. I love you. I'm in love with you. Completely, terrifyingly in love with you." Something blazed in his steel-gray eyes. "Say that again." "I love you," I repeated, stronger this time. "I know it's probably stupid and reckless, given who you are and what you do. But I can't help it. Somewhere between your arrogant demands and protective gestures, I fell in love with you." He pulled me against him, his mouth claiming mine in a kiss that was both tender and devastating. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. "I've been waiting to hear those words," he said roughly. "Do you have any idea what you do to me, Clara? How insane you make me? I'd burn the world down for you. Kill anyone who threatens you. I'm obsessed with you, addicted to you. What I feel for you goes beyond love. It's possession, ownership, complete and utter claim. I know." I reached up to stroke his face. "And it should terrify me, but it doesn't. Because I understand it now. You're mine too, Cameron, just as much as I'm yours." "Yes." His hand tangled in my hair, tilting my head back. "And I'm never letting you go, never giving you the chance to change your mind. You're mine, Clara Santiago, forever." "Then make me yours," I whispered. "In every way. Make it official." His eyes flared with heat and triumph. "Is that a yes to my proposal?" "You never actually proposed," I pointed out. He dropped to one knee right there, pulling a velvet box from his pocket. Inside was a ring that took my breath away. A perfect diamond surrounded by smaller stones that caught the light like stars. "Clara Santiago, mother of my child, woman of my heart, will you marry me? Will you be my wife, my partner, the queen of everything I've built? Will you let me spend the rest of my life protecting you, providing for you, and loving you with everything I am?" Tears streamed down my face as I nodded. Yes. Yes to all of it. He slid the ring onto my finger, then stood and lifted me into his arms, carrying me to the bed. Mine, he murmured against my lips. Finally. Completely mine. We married 2 weeks later in a private ceremony at the estate. Just us, Marco as witness, and a judge who owed Cameron favors. I wore a simple cream dress that accommodated my 7-month belly, and Cameron looked devastating in a tailored tuxedo. When the judge pronounced us husband and wife, Cameron kissed me with such reverence and possession that I forgot to breathe. His hand rested on my belly throughout the ceremony, a constant reminder of what bound us together. Mrs. Blackwood, he murmured as we stood together afterward, his arms around me from behind. How does it feel? Right, I answered honestly. Terrifying and right. Get used to it. He pressed a kiss to my neck. Because you're stuck with me now. No escape. I don't want to escape, I admitted, leaning back against his chest. Not anymore. The final months of my pregnancy passed in a blur of preparation and anticipation. Cameron became even more protective, hovering constantly, attending every doctor's appointment, and generally driving me insane with his concern. But I loved it. Loved how he talked to my belly every night, telling our daughter stories about the empire she'd inherit. Loved how he'd wake me in the middle of the night to feel the baby kick, his face full of wonder. Loved how he transformed from dangerous crime lord to devoted husband and father-to-be. It wasn't perfect. There were still threats. Still nights when he came home late with blood on his clothes and shadows in his eyes. But he kept his promise. He kept us safe, kept the darkness at bay, and showed me every day that I'd made the right choice. Have you thought about what we'll name her? I asked one evening as we lay in bed, his hand tracing patterns on my swollen belly. I have some ideas, he said, but I want to hear yours first. I was thinking something strong, something that reflects who her father is. I smiled up at him. What about Sophia? It means wisdom. Sophia Blackwood. He tested the name, then smiled. A real smile that made him look years younger. Perfect. Our little queen of wisdom. She's going to be so spoiled, I warned. You're going to give her everything she wants. Damn right I am. He kissed me softly. My girls deserve everything. Your girls, I repeated, loving the sound of it. We're really doing this, building a family. We really are. His hand pressed against where Sophia kicked. And this is just the beginning, Clara. We'll have more. Fill this house with children who know they're loved and protected. How many more? I asked, amused. As many as you'll give me. His eyes were serious. I want a dynasty, Clara. A family that will outlast us both. Looking into his face, seeing the fierce love and determination there, I believed him. We would build something lasting, something worth protecting with everything we had. Sophia came into the world on April 23rd at 3:47 in the morning, after 14 hours of labor that tested both my endurance and Cameron's sanity. He refused to leave my side for even a moment, holding my hand through every contraction, whispering encouragement when I was sure I couldn't continue. When the doctor finally placed our daughter on my chest, both Cameron and I were in tears. She was perfect, tiny and red-faced, with a shock of dark hair and lungs that announced her displeasure at being evicted from her comfortable home. She's beautiful, Cameron whispered, his finger stroking her impossibly small hand. When she gripped it reflexively, something in his face transformed. This dangerous, powerful man who controlled half of Chicago looked utterly undone by a 7-pound baby. Sophia, I murmured, exhausted but elated. Our Sophia. Our daughter. Cameron pressed a kiss to my forehead, then to Sophia's. Thank you, Clara. For her. For this. For everything. Those first weeks were a beautiful chaos. Sophia proved to have a strong will and definite opinions about everything. When she wanted to eat, when she wanted to be held, when she wanted nothing but to scream at the injustice of being a newborn. Cameron was completely besotted, taking every opportunity to hold her, feed her, change her diapers, despite having staff who could handle it all. "I want to do it myself," he insisted one night at 2 a.m. as we both stumbled through a feeding. "She's my daughter. I want to be part of every moment." I watched him cradle Sophia with such gentle reverence, singing soft Italian lullabies that his mother had once sung to him, and fell in love with him all over again. This was the man no one else saw. Tender, vulnerable, devoted to his family above all else. But the outside world still existed, with all its dangers. When Sophia was 6 weeks old, Cameron received intelligence that changed everything. He came home early from a meeting, his expression grim, and found me in the nursery reading to Sophia. "We need to talk," he said quietly. Anxiety spiked through me at his tone. "What's wrong?" He took Sophia from my arms, cradling her against his chest as if she could protect him from what he had to say. "I received word today that the FBI is building a case against me. They've been investigating my operations for the past 8 months. My blood ran cold. "How serious is it?" "Serious enough that my lawyers are concerned." His jaw tightened. "They have witness testimony, financial records, surveillance. If they move forward with charges, I could be facing significant prison time." "No." The word came out strangled. "No, Cameron, you can't. Sophia needs you. I need you." "I know." He sat beside me, still holding our daughter. "That's why I'm going to make this right. My lawyers are negotiating. I'm prepared to divest from certain businesses, cooperate on specific matters, do whatever it takes to avoid prosecution. But your empire means nothing compared to you and Sophia." His voice was fierce. "I won't lose the time I could spend with you. Won't miss watching Sophia grow up. If I have to become completely legitimate, burn every bridge to my father's legacy, I'll do it without hesitation." I stared at him, stunned. Cameron Blackwood, who'd told me his power was everything, was willing to give it all up for us. "Are you sure?" I asked quietly. "You've spent your whole life building what you have. And I spent one night with you and 9 months watching you carry my daughter. I know which matters more." He shifted Sophia so he could take my hand. "You and Sophia are my legacy now, Clara. Everything else is just business." Over the next months, Cameron systematically dismantled the illegal portions of his empire. He met with federal prosecutors, provided limited testimony against competitors in exchange for immunity, and transferred ownership of various operations to associates. It was a dangerous time. Some saw his cooperation as betrayal, others as weakness. The threats escalated. We rarely left the estate, and when we did, we traveled with a full security detail. Cameron had reinforced the perimeter security, added additional guards, and installed a safe room that could withstand anything short of a military assault. "I hate this," I told him one evening after we'd had to cancel plans to take Sophia for her first visit to the zoo. "I hate that she's growing up in a fortress, that we can't have a normal life." "I know." He pulled me against his side as we watched Sophia sleep in her crib. "But once the federal case is resolved, once I've fully transitioned to legitimate operations, things will ease. It won't be like this forever." "Promise?" "I promise. I'll give you and Sophia the normal life you deserve, even if it means giving up everything else." The turning point came when Sophia was 4 months old. Cameron received word that the federal prosecutors had accepted his cooperation agreement. In exchange for his testimony in several high-profile cases and the complete divestment of his illegal operations, all charges against him would be dropped. "It's done," he said, pulling me into his arms when he came home that day. I'm officially a legitimate businessman. No more shadow operations, no more illegal activities. Just real estate, restaurants, and investments. And the threats will diminish significantly. I've negotiated protections as part of the agreement, and anyone who comes after my family now will face federal prosecution, not just my retaliation. Relief made me weak. So we're safe. Really safe? As safe as we can be. He kissed me softly. I told you I'd protect you. Both of you, whatever it took. But safety came with its own complications. With Cameron's cooperation, several of his former associates were arrested. Some cooperated in turn, providing additional testimony. Others chose to fight, dragging cases through the courts. And one of them decided to send a message. It happened on a Wednesday afternoon. I was in the garden with Sophia, showing her the flowers while she gurgled happily in her stroller. The security team was present but maintaining their usual discreet distance. Everything seemed normal, peaceful. Then shots rang out. I heard Marco shouting, saw guards rushing toward the perimeter wall, heard the unmistakable sound of return fire. Instinct took over. I grabbed Sophia from her stroller and ran for the house, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might burst. Cameron met me at the door, having received alert from security. He pulled us both inside, his face white with fury and fear. "Are you hurt?" he demanded, his hands running over me, checking for injuries before turning his attention to Sophia. "Is she okay?" "We're fine. Scared but fine." My voice shook. "What's happening?" "Someone tried to breach the perimeter. They're dead now." His jaw was like iron. "Marco, secure the property. I want to know who sent them and why within the hour." He pulled us deeper into the house, to the reinforced safe room he'd installed. Inside was everything we'd need for days. Food, water, communications equipment, weapons. He'd thought of everything. "Stay here," he ordered, his hands cupping my face. "Don't open this door for anyone but me or Marco. Understood?" "Cameron, don't go out there. I have to. Someone just tried to hurt my family. They need to understand that's a death sentence." His eyes were cold, deadly. "I'll be back soon. I promise." He kissed me hard, then kissed Sophia's forehead, and was gone. The heavy door sealed behind him with a hiss of hydraulics. I sank onto one of the cots. Sophia clutched to my chest and tried not to think about what Cameron was doing, what he was capable of doing to protect us. It was 3 hours before he returned, and when he did, his expression was grim but satisfied. "It was Antonio Moretti," he said, pulling off his jacket. "One of the men I testified against. He hired freelancers to send a message. Is he? He won't be sending any more messages." Cameron's voice was flat, cold. "And neither will anyone else who gets ideas. I made sure of that." I didn't ask what he meant, didn't want to know the details. Because despite everything, despite his promises to go legitimate, Cameron Blackwood would always be dangerous when it came to protecting his family. "This has to stop," I said quietly. "Sophia can't grow up like this, running, hiding, watching her father become a killer to keep us safe." "I know." He sat beside me, Sophia immediately reaching for him. He took her, cradling her with infinite gentleness. "And it will stop. The prosecutors have been notified of this attack. They're going to move up the trial date for Moretti and the others. Once they're convicted and locked away, the threat level will decrease significantly. And in the meantime, we stay vigilant, we stay together, and we trust that what I've built around us is strong enough to keep you safe." He was right. Over the next months, as the trials proceeded and convictions came down, the threats did diminish. Cameron's testimony helped put away several major players in Chicago's underworld. Some praised his cooperation, seeing it as a smart business move. Others condemned him as a traitor. He didn't care what they thought. He'd made his choice, and he'd live with the consequences. By Sophia's first birthday, things had finally stabilized. We threw a party at the estate, just family and a few trusted friends. Cameron had even invited Jenny from the Aurelia, who cried when she saw how much my life had changed. "You deserve this," she told me, watching Cameron play with Sophia in the grass. "All of it. Happiness, security, love." "I do," I agreed, surprised to find I believed it. "We both do." That night, after Sophia was asleep and the guests had gone, Cameron found me on the terrace overlooking the gardens. He pulled me against his chest, his arms wrapping around me from behind. "Happy?" he murmured into my hair. "Deliriously," I admitted. "Even with all the chaos and danger, I wouldn't change anything. This is exactly where I'm supposed to be." "With me." "With you," I confirmed. "You and Sophia. My family. Our family." His hand moved to rest on my stomach, and I realized he'd noticed what I'd only confirmed that morning. "And soon it will be bigger." I turned in his arms, tears pricking my eyes. "You know? I know everything about you, Clara." He kissed me softly. "Including when you're pregnant. How far along?" 6 weeks. I was going to surprise you tonight." His smile was radiant. Another baby. Another piece of our future. His hand pressed against my still flat stomach. "Boy or girl?" "Too early to tell. But knowing our luck, probably another strong-willed daughter who has you wrapped around her finger. I'm counting on it." He kissed me again, deeper this time. "Thank you for this. For everything. For taking a chance on a dangerous man and making him want to be better." "You were always better," I corrected. "You just needed a reason to show it." As we stood together under the stars, his hand on my stomach and our daughter sleeping safely inside, I finally understood what Cameron had been trying to tell me all along. Love wasn't about perfection or safety. It was about choosing someone and committing completely, through darkness and danger, through fear and uncertainty. And I'd chosen Cameron Blackwood, the dangerous crime lord who became a devoted husband and father, the man who'd given up his empire to keep his family safe, the protector who'd claimed me as his and never wavered. I'd chosen him, and I'd choose him again every single day for the rest of our lives. The second pregnancy was both easier and harder than the first. Easier because I knew what to expect, because I had Cameron's unwavering support, because I wasn't working myself to exhaustion while trying to hide my condition. Harder because Sophia, at 18 months, was a whirlwind of energy who had inherited her father's intensity and her mother's stubborn independence. "Down," she demanded one morning, squirming in Cameron's arms as he tried to feed her breakfast. "Down now, Daddy." "Sophia Rose Blackwood, you will eat your oatmeal," Cameron said with faux sternness that fooled no one. His little princess had him wrapped around her finger and knew it. I watched from the doorway, my hand resting on my 5-month belly, and smiled at the scene. This was our life now, messy, chaotic, perfect. So different from the sterile existence I'd imagined when I first met Cameron. "Let her down," I advised. "She'll come back when she's hungry enough." Cameron sighed but complied, and Sophia immediately toddled over to me, wrapping her arms around my legs. "Mama, baby." "Yes, sweetheart, baby is in Mama's tummy." I stroked her dark curls, so much like Cameron's. "Soon, you'll have a little brother or sister." We'd found out 2 weeks ago that we were having a boy. Cameron had been beside himself with joy, immediately starting plans for transforming the guest room into a nursery for his son. His heir, he kept saying with satisfaction. Though we both knew Sophia would rule our world regardless of what her brother might inherit. "Speaking of which," Cameron said, standing and pulling me into his arms, careful of my belly, "I have news." Something in his tone made me tense. Good news or bad news? Complicated news, He guided me to sit at the kitchen table while Sophia busied herself with her toys. I received a call from the FBI this morning. There's one more person they need me to testify against. Marco Valentino. The name meant nothing to me, but Cameron's expression told me it should. Who is he? Someone I thought was an ally. Someone I trusted. His jaw tightened. Apparently, he was the one who leaked information about you to Rossi when you were first pregnant. He was also behind the attack last year that nearly reached you and Sophia. Horror washed over me. What? Why? He felt I betrayed the old ways by cooperating with the feds. He's been working to undermine me ever since, trying to prove that my family makes me weak. Cameron's voice was cold, deadly. The FBI has been building a case against him for months. They finally have enough to move forward, but they need my testimony to secure a conviction. Will you do it? Without hesitation. He took my hand, his thumb stroking across my knuckles. He threatened my family. That's unforgivable. But Clara, this will be the final case. After this, I'm done with that world completely. No more testimony, no more cooperation. Just us, our children, and the legitimate life we're building. Promise? I swear it. He pulled me closer, his hand resting on my belly where our son grew. After this, we're free. Completely free. The trial was set for early December, when I'd be 7 months pregnant. Cameron insisted I stay home with Sophia rather than attend, and for once I didn't argue. The thought of sitting in a courtroom, heavily pregnant, while my husband testified against a dangerous criminal who'd already tried to hurt us, made my skin crawl. Instead, I stayed at the estate with an increased security detail, trying to maintain normalcy for Sophia, while anxiety gnawed at me. Cameron called multiple times each day with updates, his voice steady and reassuring even as he described the parade of witnesses and evidence being presented. It's going well, he told me on the 3rd day of testimony. The prosecutors are confident they have enough for a conviction. I should only need to testify 1 more day. And then it's over? Then it's over, he confirmed. And I can come home to my family where I belong. But the universe, it seemed, had other plans. I was putting Sophia down for her afternoon nap when I felt it. A sharp, stabbing pain low in my abdomen that stole my breath. Different from the Braxton Hicks contractions I'd been experiencing. Sharper, more urgent. Marco, I called out. My voice strained as I gripped the doorframe. Cameron's head of security appeared immediately, his eyes widening when he saw my face. What's wrong? Something's wrong with the baby. I need to get to the hospital. He didn't hesitate, already pulling out his phone to call Cameron while simultaneously organizing transport. Within minutes, we were in an SUV racing toward the hospital, Sophia strapped into her car seat and looking at me with wide, worried eyes. "Mama okay?" she asked in her small voice. "Mama's okay, baby," I lied, trying to smile through the pain. "We're just going to see the doctor." Cameron met us at the hospital, having abandoned his testimony the moment Marco called. His face was white, his eyes wild with barely controlled fear as he pulled me into his arms. "What happened? Are you okay? Is the baby—" "I don't know," I admitted, tears streaming down my face. "Cameron, I'm scared. I've got you." He lifted me into his arms, carrying me into the emergency room while Marco followed with Sophia. "Someone help us. My wife is pregnant and in pain." The next hours were a blur of examinations, ultrasounds, and worried faces. The baby's heartbeat was strong, but I was having contractions. Real ones, not false labor. At 28 weeks, it was far too early. "We're going to stop the labor if we can," the doctor explained, already ordering medications. "But Mrs. Blackwood, I need you to understand, if we can't stop it, we'll need to deliver. Your son would be premature but has a good chance of survival with the level of care we can provide." Cameron's hand tightened on mine, his other hand resting on my belly. Do whatever you need to do. Money is no object. The best equipment, the best specialists, whatever it takes. They managed to stop the contractions with medication and strict bed rest orders. I would need to stay in the hospital for at least a week for monitoring, possibly longer. Cameron immediately arranged for a private suite, for staff to care for Sophia, for everything to be as comfortable as possible. But comfortable didn't change the fear that had settled in my chest. What if something had happened? I asked Cameron that night as we lay together in the hospital bed, Sophia asleep on a cot nearby. What if we'd lost him? We didn't. His hand was firm on my belly, as if he could protect our son through sheer will. He's strong, Clara. Like his mother. He's going to be fine. You can't know that. Yes, I can. He tilted my face toward his eyes intense. Because I won't accept any other outcome. This baby, our son, is going to be born healthy and perfect. And then we're going to take him home with his sister and live the life we've built together. I won't let fate take that from us. His certainty was absurd, impossible. And yet, I believed him. Over the next week, as I remained in the hospital under careful observation, Cameron made a decision that changed everything. He called the prosecutors and told them he was done. No more testimony, no more cooperation. His family came first, and he needed to be with me. But the case, I protested when he told me, will proceed without my testimony. They have enough. His voice was final. I made a promise to you that after Valentino's trial, I was done. Well, I'm done now. Effective immediately. Cameron, if he goes free because you didn't testify, he won't. And even if he does, I'll handle him my own way. The coldness in his voice reminded me of who he'd been before I civilized him. But nothing, not justice or revenge or any other consideration, matters more than being here with you and our children. I wanted to argue, to tell him he was making a mistake, but selfish as it was, I needed him there, needed his strength and certainty to anchor me through my fear. The baby held on. 10 days of bed rest in the hospital, then 2 more weeks of modified bed rest at home, and finally the doctors cleared me to resume light activities. I'd made it to 32 weeks, still early, but much safer than 28. 4 more weeks, Cameron said one evening, as we sat in the nursery we'd prepared for our son. 4 more weeks, and he can be born with minimal complications. And if he comes early, then we'll be ready. He gestured to the corner where he'd installed hospital-grade equipment, monitors, an incubator, everything we might need. Dr. Harrison is on call 24/7. We have a medical team ready to respond. Our son will have every advantage. I should have been reassured. Instead, I felt the weight of Cameron's control settling over everything. He was trying to manage the unmanageable, to force the universe to comply with his will. And while I loved him for it, I also knew that some things were beyond even his power. Our son decided to arrive at 34 weeks, 6 days. I went into labor on a Sunday morning, fast and intense, leaving no time for fear or second-guessing. Cameron called the medical team while carrying me to the car himself, his face set in lines of determination and terror. "You're going to be fine," he kept saying, more to himself than to me. "Both of you are going to be fine. I won't allow anything else." The delivery was quicker than Sophia's had been, only 4 hours from first contraction to birth. And then our son was there, smaller than Sophia had been, but perfect. Absolutely perfect. He cried immediately, a strong wail that told us his lungs worked fine despite his early arrival. "Lucas," I whispered as they placed him on my chest. We'd chosen the name weeks ago. It meant light. Lucas Cameron Blackwood. Cameron stared at his son with wonder, his hand shaking as he reached out to touch Lucas's tiny head. "He's so small." "He's strong," the doctor assured us. Good weight for 34 weeks, excellent color, breathing well on his own. I'd say you have a fighter on your hands, Mr. Blackwood. He's a Blackwood, Cameron said with fierce pride. Of course he's a fighter. Lucas spent 5 days in the NICU for observation and to ensure he could regulate his temperature and feed effectively. Cameron barely left his side, maintaining his vigil with the same intensity he brought to everything else in his life. I divided my time between the hospital and home, where Sophia needed her mother. When we finally brought Lucas home, Sophia was fascinated by her tiny brother. She wanted to hold him constantly, to help with everything, to protect him with the same fierce devotion she showed for her toys. Gentle, I reminded her as she stroked his impossibly soft hair. Baby Lucas is very small. My brother, she declared proudly. My baby brother. Cameron watched them together, something raw and vulnerable in his expression. This is what I was fighting for, he said quietly. This right here. Our family. We made it, I said, leaning against him as we watched our children. Through all the danger and fear and uncertainty, we made it. We did. His arm wrapped around me, pulling me close. And now we keep making it. Every day, for the rest of our lives. The months that followed were a beautiful chaos of sleepless nights, endless diapers, and more love than I'd known possible. Lucas proved to be a calm baby compared to his sister's intensity, but he had his own strong will. And when he looked at you with those steel-gray eyes he'd inherited from his father, you could see the determination that would define him. On our 2nd anniversary, we counted from our private ceremony, not from the night we met. Cameron surprised me with a vow renewal ceremony. Nothing elaborate, just us, the children, and a handful of close friends in our garden at sunset. 2 years ago, I promised to love and protect you for the rest of my life, he said, holding my hands as we stood under an arch of flowers. I've kept that promise every single day, and today I renew it. Clara Blackwood, you are my heart, my home, my reason for everything. You and our children are the legacy I'll leave behind, not an empire of fear and power, but a family built on love. Tears streamed down my face as I spoke my own vows. 2 years ago I was terrified, alone and pregnant, working myself to exhaustion, hiding from the world. You found me, claimed me, and gave me everything I never knew I needed. You've protected us, provided for us, and loved us with an intensity that still takes my breath away. Cameron Blackwood, you are my unexpected gift, my fierce protector, my impossible love. And I choose you, today and every day, for the rest of our lives. As we kissed, Sophia clapped her hands, and Lucas made soft baby sounds from Jenny's arms. It was perfect, imperfect and chaotic, and absolutely perfect. That night, after the children were asleep and the guests had gone, Cameron found me on the terrace where we'd stood so many times before. Happy anniversary, Mrs. Blackwood, he murmured, pulling me against his chest. Happy anniversary. I tilted my head back to look at him. Any regrets? Not a single one. His hand moved to rest on my stomach, where, yes, another baby was already growing. 3 months along with what we suspected was another girl. Regret the day I walked into that penthouse and found you? Regret claiming you as mine? Never. Even though I made your life complicated? You made my life worth living, he corrected. Before you, I was just maintaining my father's legacy, going through the motions. You gave me a reason to want more, to be more. You made me human again. You were always human, I said softly. You just needed someone to see it. As we stood together under the stars, his arms around me and our children sleeping safely inside, I thought about the impossible journey that had brought us here. From a chance encounter to a pregnancy I'd tried to hide, from a powerful man's obsessive claim to a love that had transformed us both. It shouldn't have worked. By every measure, we should have destroyed each other. His need for control, my need for independence, the danger of his world colliding with my desire for normalcy. But somehow, impossibly, we'd found a way, not by changing who we were, but by choosing each other despite everything. "I love you, Cameron Blackwood," I whispered into the night. "My impossible, infuriating, perfect man." "I love you, Clara Blackwood," he replied, his hand pressing against where our third child grew. "My stubborn, courageous, remarkable woman, mine, now and forever." "Yours," I agreed, "always yours." And standing there in his arms, I finally understood what he'd been trying to tell me from the beginning. Being his didn't mean losing myself. It meant finding myself reflected in someone else's eyes. It meant being cherished, protected, and loved with an intensity most people never experienced. Cameron Blackwood had claimed me as his in that hotel penthouse 2 years ago. But the truth was, I'd claimed him right back. And together, we'd built something neither of us could have created alone. A family, a future, a love story that began with secrets and ended with truth. Our truth. Imperfect, complicated, and absolutely, undeniably ours.